I gave up everything to be where I'm at right now.
Kid Rock has built an incredible career for himself thanks to his public image as a working-class rocker from humble origins. But the shocking truth about his past has recently been exposed, and it turns out that the singer has been lying to us about who he really is this whole time. Here's the incredible truth. Kid Rock, also known as Robert James Ritchie, actually grew up in pretty staggering wealth. It turns out that he grew up 40 miles north of Detroit in Bruce Township in Michigan. Although a pretty remote place, Bruce Township was by no means a poor place to grow up in. The area has always been pretty upper middle class, but even in that kind of company, Robert's family home stood out as a pretty sweet place to be. He was actually raised in a giant estate. It has been reported that his family home was built on land totaling an incredible 5.5 acres, and the house contained 5 bedrooms with 7 bathrooms. So it wasn't exactly like growing up in a trailer park. Robert's surprising past first came to light in 2018. First built in 1972, the house belonged to the singer's family for 46 years before being put up for sale. The original description of the property from Morgan and Milzo proved just how fancy the place really was. It was described as a homestead on 5 panoramic acres, with all that was expected of an estate of nearly 6,000 square feet. After a renovation in 2004, the house also included a crazy 5-car garage as well as a guest house. There was also a walkout that was only partially finished at the time the house was put on the market. The description went on to say that the house was perfect for the relaxed country gentleman, which is definitely not the picture Kid Rock has painted of himself to his fans over the years. I think everyone would be shocked to discover that his childhood home also came with a 3-stall horse barn, a tennis court, and a pool. In fact, there was even more stuff in the home that wouldn't even fit into the description. It did mention the fact that the house also contained a hot tub and a wet barn. In November of 2018, the house sold for $650,000. Pictures of the house soon found their way onto the internet, where everyone could see just how much space there was around the enormous building. Honestly, it must have been a pretty wild place for any kid to grow up. But it did make a lot of us think twice about the persona Robert created as Kid Rock, and start to question just how much we could really believe anything he said that he represented. His comfortable childhood came about thanks to his dad's hugely successful car dealership. This probably helped Robert get his career started, since with a wealthy family and a safe home environment to grow up in, he was in a position where he could focus on his music completely. He started off as a rapper and DJ at the age of just 17, and he was soon to be signed to New York hip-hop label Jive Records. One of his early producers, Mike E. Clark, recalled how surprised he was the first time he heard the kid rap. He said that he remembered being taken aback by how confident Robert was, and I think that his upbringing probably really helped him with that. However, a time would eventually come when Robert would have to face some real challenges. In the 90s, he was making a career for himself in Detroit as a rapper when he had his world turned upside down. Years later, his drummer Bob Ebeling told the Detroit Free Press about Robert moving in with him after a shocking discovery. Bob said that Robert came to live with him after leaving his girlfriend Kelly. He had lived with Kelly and her 3 kids. Originally, Robert had believed that 2 of them were his, but he was devastated when he found out that only 1 of them was. Bob said that Robert was completely heartbroken and that it was possibly his lowest ever point in life. Another reason for this, according to Bob, was that Robert had kind of fallen out with his dad at the time. Bob described him as being disenfranchised and said that there wasn't a lot of financial support coming from Robert's family. Although he was working as a musician, the label Robert was signed with was only a small one at the time. So for the first time in his life, he knew what it felt like to have money problems. And honestly, it must have been a pretty scary time for Robert. However, Bob said that even in those dark times, there was one thing about Robert that was still there. But what he shared was kind of unexpected. Bob said that Robert had one motivation at all times, and that was the motivation to become famous. Bob compared him to big Detroit stars at the time like Eminem and Rufus Wainwright. He thought that there must be a certain type of personality that just needs to be famous. He went on to say that Robert definitely fit that personality type, and that fame was his drive at all times. Bob recalled that Robert used to talk to him about it in a way that didn't even make sense to him, and that he relished the idea of it. Apparently Robert always loved it when they went somewhere to eat and someone recognized him. He summed things up in what was actually a pretty disturbing way. He said that he thought Robert had a whole reward system in his head that didn't exist in other people, which made him believe that when people recognized him and wanted a piece of him, it was the same as being wealthy. There are a few things we might be able to take from this. First, it kind of confirmed that Robert did not grow up thinking that money was the most important thing. Being well known was more attractive to him. This can only be because as a child he never knew what it was like to not have money. He probably never really worried about it. It also showed us what the real reason was behind everything Robert did as Kid Rock. And what he really wanted was just attention. This has helped to explain some of the crazier things he has said and done in more recent years that have often got him in trouble, and also sometimes hurt a lot of people. Clearly he didn't mind this so much as long as it made people talk about him. Whether or not we agree on his antics or think that he's sometimes gone too far, it definitely looks like his drive for fame paid off. As a rapper, singer, and producer, Robert has amassed his own fortune that is way bigger than the money his family earned. He reportedly has a net worth of around $150 million. After making his way to the Detroit music scene, his career finally exploded with the release of his 5th album, Devil Without a Cause, in 1998. The album eventually went platinum, selling 13 million copies worldwide. Since then, he has taken his career in many different directions thanks to his obsession with fame and staying relevant. Robert has made music in many genres, including country, rock, and hip-hop. In total, he has sold more than 50 million albums throughout his career, and he has also picked up 5 Grammy nominations along the way. However, it wasn't until 2007 that he reached the peak of his career. His seventh album, Rock and Roll Jesus, reached #1 on the Hot Billboard 200, making it the first chart-topping album of his career. Over the next few years, he started to change his music to appeal to more country fans. And after a childhood spent working with the horses and on the farm at his family home, you might say that this was Robert going back to his roots. What do you guys think? Has your opinion about Kid Rock changed since finding out that he grew up rich? And was it wrong for him to try and make himself look like something he wasn't? Let me know down in the comments below.